The inaugural summit among ASEAN, Gulf countries and China is set to take place. The ASEAN-GCC China Summit is scheduled for Tuesday, May the 27th in Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia, on the sidelines of the 46th ASEAN Summit under the theme Inclusivity and Sustainability. Chinese Premier Li Qiang is expected to represent China at the meetings and pay an official visit to the country. As this year's ASEAN chair, Malaysia has highlighted its goal of forging and expanding economic partnerships with those beyond its borders as one of its main priorities. What drives the three parties to embrace each other? What's on the agenda of the summit, and how might this new platform bring fresh dynamics into Asia and potentially the world? Welcome to The Point with me, Li Xin, coming to you from Beijing. This is an opinion show, and I'm pleased to be joined from Kuala Lumpur, capital of Malaysia, by Koh King Kee, president of the Centre for New Inclusive Asia, a non-government Malaysian think tank; from Phnom Penh, capital of Cambodia, by Vannarith, director of the China-ASEAN Studies Centre at Camtech University; from Shanghai, by Wen Yao, associate professor in the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University; and from Brisbane, Australia, by Warwick Powell, adjunct professor at Queensland University of Technology. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. First of all, let's take a look at where this trilateral mechanism comes from. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim said in February that ASEAN must expand its global engagement beyond traditional partners, and during Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Malaysia, the two sides issued a joint statement on building a high-level strategic China-Malaysia community with a shared future, and it says China appreciated Malaysia's initiatives such as ASEAN-China Gulf Cooperation Council Cooperation Summit, which embody open regionalism that is conducive to international regional economic and financial stability and coordinated development among different regions in Asia. Let me go to Mr. Koh King Kee first. Exactly whose idea was it to bring the three parties together, and what's the consideration?
I think our PM, Anwar Ibrahim, initiated this because Malaysia is the rotating chairman of ASEAN this year. So it's a right opportunity. It is cost and time saving. And our PM has been very active in the Muslim world. He's since young. So I think it's a good time to engage the three parties together in the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur this time. Yeah.
Mr. Vannarith, how are regional countries such as Cambodia looking at this initiative, and what potentially could Cambodia, for instance, or other regional countries gain from such practice?
Cambodia, as well as other Southeast Asian countries, are very supportive of open regionalism, inclusive regionalism, with the vision of promoting global ASEAN. So global ASEAN means that we need to outreach to other countries beyond our region. And in this case, it's a Gulf Cooperation Council, which is will be a new mechanism in the global ASEAN framework, with the hope that we can push forward this extended regional integration. Because now we are living in a very disruptive world. Our export have been constrained due to the U.S. Unilateral tariff war. So we need to find a way out, and the best way, a viable way for us to work together, so that we can create our own regional economic hub. Trade, investment flow can be promoted.
Professor Powell, from your perspective, observing from Australia, what are the three countries or three groups trying to do together? What are they trying to achieve, and why it is necessary and timely? Is it?
Look, I think in many ways what they're trying to achieve is a continuation of the strategic orientation of all three parties over the course of the last many decades, and that is to build stronger bridges and more bridges between their respective regions and other parts of the world. we already have deep relationships between China and ASEAN, so much so that ASEAN is China's largest trading partner and has been so for quite a number of years. Of course, China and the Gulf states have been deepening their own relationships over the past few years, not only in terms of energy trade, but also in terms of China's exports of high technologies to support the transformations of the Gulf states' economic systems to be more focused on green energy and data systems and those sorts of things. And of course, we've also seen Gulf states and ASEAN develop and extend their relationships. And it's a natural extension of these existing bilateral relationships to bring it all together. There's also an important historic dimension to this, Lucian, and that is that these relationships, in a sense, speak to a world that existed over 1,000 years ago when China and Malaysia in particular were pivotal to trade relationships with the countries or the civilizations of the Gulf state. And in some regards, what we're seeing now is a 21st century version of those sorts of relationships that blossomed during the Song and the Tang dynasty. This is an exciting time for all parties involved because this really says that together they are able to trade, to exchange the goods and services that they all need from each other, and to help each other achieve their own ambitions for economic vitality and improving the living conditions of the people that they are each responsible for.
Let me go back to Mr. Koh King Kee. Again, this is a fascinating idea. When I first see the topic, I was like, ASEAN, China, GCC. I mean, we don't really think this way, right? We think about ASEAN, China, okay, we think about China, US, we think about China, Latin America, but the three parties together, and they're although in the same continent, we're quite far apart. I mean, Asia is a huge continent. China is in East Asia, Southeast Asia, of course, groups a lot of countries in the southeastern part of Asia, and Middle East, Gulf countries are, of course, very much surrounded in the Middle Eastern part or the Western Asian part. Why the necessity to bring them closer? What brings us together? What are the common interests?
Actually, if you think in terms of the maritime Silk Road, they are not very far. You know, when Zheng Ho went down, you know, to this Xiaxiang, it passed through Malaysia all the way to Central Asia. To the Middle East, and we have a lot of things in common. You know, Malaysia and ASEAN countries, we are very export-oriented countries, especially in this time of uncertainty, with these, U.S. imposing these reciprocal tariffs. So it is more necessary for the global South country to get together, you know, and probably you're aware that these three blocks together accounts for 1/4 of global GDP and 1/4 of world population. So it is a formidable force if these three blocks come together. Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Professor Wen Yao from Fudan University, China supports the idea and China appreciates Malaysia's initiative, and Malaysia looks forward to the high-level participation from China to the summit. As I said earlier, Chinese Premier Li Qiang will be attending the trilateral summit. Why is China so appreciative of this initiative? What's China's position?
Well, early in April, China holds the first ever central meeting related to neighborhood diplomacy. So China has again reaffirmed its premium placed on the neighborhood as the priority of China's foreign strategy. So China has been forging even closer relations with its neighboring countries in Asia. At this time, the tripartite relationship between China, GCC, and ASEAN could be greatly enhanced the collective voice of the global South. And countries from all three parties are important emerging economies in the world, especially in this time of rising protectionism and deglobalization. This would actually send the positive energy and certainty and stability to the international community that there are still important countries out there in Asia who cares about openness, inclusiveness, and free trade. So that is the main political signal I think all three parties seek to show to the world.
Chan Vannarith in Cambodia, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar said in a recent interview that strengthening ties with China, the Gulf Cooperation Council, BRICS and other emerging economies is not about choosing sides. Rather, it's about ensuring ASEAN's strategic relevance in the multipolar world. What do you make of this remarks, bearing in mind that there will certainly be people who will say, no, look, the three countries are trying to, increase their power, their geopolitical ambition, and try to, counter the weight of the United States and so on and so forth. How do you make of the non-geopolitical, probably, significance on the mind of the host Malaysia?
That is a very accurate assessment. I share the view that Southeast Asian countries are not interested in taking sides. What we're interested in is to advance our common interests through open and inclusive multilateralism. So that is our firm belief that we need to promote this multilateral system that benefits everyone, as not only us, but our partners as well. So in this geopolitical landscape, I think ASEAN have been working hard to diversify its strategic partnership, pursuing this hedging strategy, so to speak, so that this trilateral summit is just one of the examples or one of the initiatives that ASEAN have been forging over the decades. And I think in the coming years, we may have another initiative, let's say with Latin America, with Africa, and can put China
Why not?
together. So why not? This is, as a previous panelist mentioned earlier, it's a Global South time. It's a moment, critical moment for the Global South to work together to shape and build a new world order that is more inclusive, fair, and just for all of us.
Yeah. Well, Professor Powell, how challenging is it, however, for such Global South platforms and grouping to gain traction, to gain momentum and make it a sustainable, a long-lasting initiative? Because after all, there's a lot of hurdles and there are differences. It's a young platform. This is the inaugural meeting. So what has to be done by the three groups so that they can actually make an impact for themselves, for the Global South?
Look, fortunately, we're not working from a blank sheet of paper. The relationships that exist in a bilateral way that I described earlier lay strong foundations of historical economic collaboration, as well as social and cultural and political exchange. So at that level, there is already a foundation of trust and understanding. What needs to happen now is to build upon that by laying out what the parties together see as their common interests and how, by working together in this format, they will be able to take their already existing relationships to another level altogether and explore how, through this tripartite arrangement, they can actually do more than they could do before in those different bipartite arrangements. So I think we're talking about a group of countries that have a long history of commitment to dialogue and negotiation so as to achieve consensus, because achieving consensus lays the foundations for ongoing collaboration. Now, that all takes time. You don't achieve consensus by one party forcing their views onto everyone else. And the good thing, I think, about this particular group of participants is that they actually have a deep history of talking and understanding that it is only through dialogue that you can lay the solid foundations for sustainable collaboration going.
Yeah. What about Gulf countries? I mean, you have done quite a lot of work involving these countries in the Middle East, in the digital area, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, we don't have a guest representing that region for today's show. May I use you as a proxy, as an interlocutor, Professor Powell, if I may? Speak from their perspective. Why is it important for them to look east and in two different directions, East Asia and Southeast Asia?
Look, I think that there's a few reasons. One is, of course, from the Gulf countries' point of view, they understand that the foundations of their economic wealth that have been built over the last 50 years are not likely to be there for the next 100 years, which means that they are all focused upon how to lay the groundwork for significant economic restructuring. And that means transitioning from what has been an oil and petrodollar dominated economic model into a post-petrodollar economic model. To do that, they will need to access a broad range of technologies and know-how, including technologies in renewable energy, not only in the production of renewable energy, but the storage of renewable energy and the entire ecosystems that go with it. At the same time, they need to access new markets, and that's where Southeast Asia really comes into its own. And between the three of them, the complementarities are there for Gulf countries to continue driving their restructuring, for China to play its role as a critical enabling technology provider, and for Southeast Asian nations to access the markets, but to also play their role in the overall network of critical infrastructure.
Professor Wen Yao, speaking of complementarity, I don't know how much you agree with that, but the Chinese Foreign Ministry actually said that the inaugural trilateral summit will help achieve complementary advantages and mutual benefits among the three sides. From China's perspective, how does China see the complementariness of the three economies, and what does China have to offer, and what does China look to gain from the trilateral cooperation specifically?
Yes, we can look at this picture from two sides. One is from the picture of investment and production. Chinese investors, Chinese companies are, over the past few years, are actively looking for good investment opportunities in both the Gulf region and Southeast Asia. And through the BRI, China also embarked on cooperation in terms of infrastructure building. And that is where the needs really complement each other, and China also is willing to and ready to share its technical know-how regarding economic diversification and economic modernization, which also I think Gulf countries and Southeast Asian countries are interested. And also from a consumer perspective, actually all three parties, China, ASEAN countries, GCC countries, are very, very big consumer markets. So there is the potential for a giant internal circulation of economic activities between the three parties. So that would actually lead to a very healthy production, investments, and consumption circle between the three parties.
Mr. Koh King Kee, of course, this is the inaugural summit. A lot of, pageantry, optics will be there. But how soon is this going to lead to practical cooperation? How soon are we going to see concrete projects being rolled out under this umbrella? People talk about clean energy, digital economy. What are you looking at?
Yes, I think China is a world leader in green, in renewable energy, in green development. That's a fact, and also, China is good in, is also has achieved a lot in terms of poverty elevation. These are the areas that also you can look into. Digital technology is now very popular, so I think this is one area that the three parties can look into it, and China is leading in this. And as I said, the world is also transitioning to renewable energy. So again, China is good at that. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Vannarith, what is your imagination telling you? What could come out of the tripartite collaboration to benefit the local people concretely in the short term? Benefit someone on the streets of Phnom Penh, for instance?
I think in addition to what have been discussed relating to the green economy or digital economy, I think other areas of cooperation can be on tourism industry, trade promotion, investment facilitation, because investment very critical in job creation and opportunities. And perhaps they will have some kind of projects on connectivity, such as this kind of infrastructure connectivity. But of course, as our geographical scope is too vast, so perhaps air connectivity can be promoted among the three regions. But I think that digital connectivity can be further facilitated, because now we are all transition into either 5G or 6G networks, but we need to have a compatibility, how to integrate all these systems together so that we can boost what we call digital transformations.
China just announced the completion of negotiations with 10 ASEAN countries on version 3.0 of China-ASEAN Free Trade Area, and the official agreement is expected to be announced very soon. Will freer trade, Professor Powell, will freer trade between China and ASEAN impact more broadly in the region and potentially for countries such as Australia?
Well, there are a number of trade agreements that overlap each other, and the free trade agreement between China and ASEAN is one of those. And China, of course, together with ASEAN, are also members of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which extends to Australia, New Zealand, Korea, and Japan. So I think what we're starting to see is the realization that in an environment where global trade is being radically disrupted by Washington's policies, that the institutions that sustain and support and ultimately nurture the increasing openness of trade, whatever those institutions are, need to be not only protected, but to be enhanced. And this is what we're seeing here. I think it will lead to further boosts in trade between China and ASEAN countries. And of course, it sends a very strong signal that these markets and these countries are committed to the long-term centrality of trade openness as part of their own international orientations. So I'm looking forward to how this particular deal, upgrade of the agreement, will benefit the participants, number one, but importantly, also show the way for others as to how they can fashion the next chapter of what I often call globalization with multipolar characteristics.
Professor Powell, I'm going to stay with you here. And for a moment, it seems there is nothing the rest of the world can do but through moral weight, but through condemnation, because after all, the United States is still the most powerful country when it comes to sanctions. It does have a very strong chilling effect. What can countries do together to counter that kind of hegemonic and bullying practice? And is this kind of trilateral platform a potential way forward for countries to say enough is enough? We want to be treated properly and with respect.
Look, the United States does have a penchant for unilateral actions, particularly those that seek to prohibit other countries from doing things. And the track record has been patchy for many decades and has been getting worse in the last decade or so. American tariffs and Western tariffs, more broadly speaking, levied at Russia and others, have proven to be less and less successful on their own terms. And that's because countries are realizing that there are ways in which they can collaborate with each other to find new pathways of economic value flows that ultimately enable them to pursue their economic development and social development, regardless of the sanctions. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that the sanctions do end up causing a backlash, and the backlash hurts the countries and the working people in the countries that are imposing them on others. So hopefully in time, the realization will come from the body politic in the United States that this practice, this habit of running around the world trying to punish and prohibit others from doing things not only doesn't work, but it actually causes self-harm. And these arrangements, such as the format coming up at this trilateral meeting, are part and parcel of how nations around the world are preparing themselves to mitigate against the future risks of American unilateral and capricious action.
Professor Wen Yao, finally, what does China look to achieve from the official visit, of course, by the Chinese Premier, the participation in the ASEAN Summit and in the ASEAN GCC Summit this coming week?
Well, I think from Chinese perspective, first of all, it's a political signal, first and foremost. It sends the signal not only to neighboring countries, but also to the world that countries in Global South still can find ways to unite, to make their collective voice heard, that openness and inclusiveness and multilateralism are the way forward. Second, there might be practical negotiations and discussions regarding, for example, clean energy development, green energy, digital economy, supply chain connectivity, etc., etc. And I think going forward, very importantly, are also some non-economic dimensions of the tripartite relationship. For example, political exchanges. All the three parties actually they come from different civilizational background. They have different political systems, and they all show respect towards each other's own pursuits independently for modernization. That is crucial, actually, for the Global South countries to continue their way forward. And finally, people-to-people exchanges are still very important. For example, at Fudan, every year we host hundreds, if not thousands, of students, experts, and scholars from Southeast Asia and also Gulf countries. Mr. Koh King Kee actually is a frequent contributor to our academic events. So I think that serves the foundation for inter-societal relations in the coming generations.
Great, great. And so, yeah, it's natural that I call on Mr. Koh King Kee to wrap up the session. Maybe that's all the time we have. Mr. Koh King Kee, how much inclusivity and sustainability can be promoted through the summit?
Yes, I think the theme for ASEAN's chairmanship is inclusivity and sustainability. So I think rightfully, this is the right time, right theme for this summit to take place, and I'm sure from there will be some positive development, out of this summit, and it will also show an example to other countries, to other parts of the world, that how countries can work together for the good of the world and of its people.
Yeah. What a contrast we're seeing in today's world at this moment, without naming names. Many thanks to my guest, Koh King Kee, President of the Center for New Inclusive Asia, non-government Malaysian think tank, Chan Vannarith, Director of the China-ASEAN Studies Center at Camtech University, Wen Yao, Associate Professor in the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University, and Warwick Powell, Adjunct Professor at Queensland University of Technology in Australia. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for sharing with us your insights. And that brings us to the end of this edition of The Point, with me, Liu Xin, coming to you from Beijing on behalf of the whole team. Thank you for watching. As usual, you can follow me on Facebook and X using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. You've got the point.